Riverdale Yonkers Society for Ethical Culture is part of a larger group called Ethical Culture. The first Ethical Culture Society was founded by, and the movement was founded by Felix Adler. And he was mainly concerned with children working in factories. He said children should be in school learning. They should not be working in factories. And so he developed the first free kindergarten in New York City, which eventually grew into the Ethical Culture Fieldston School. And it's grown into, there's maybe 20, 25 societies across the country. And we're under an umbrella organization called the American Ethical Union. And the American Ethical Union supports each individual society by giving training to people who are aspiring to be leaders. I got involved with this in 1993, I think it was, 92, in the early 90s. I came to a platform, our Sunday morning meeting here, and our leader announced that the Riverdale Presbyterian Church wanted to do something about homelessness in New York City, and they were holding a meeting. So I felt that that was what I should be doing as a member of Ethical Culture, as a humanist. And so I went to the first meeting, and we set goals. One was to go out and find homeless individuals in the area and give them whatever support we could by bringing them food and clothing. And what we ended up doing with that was going to the last stop on the number 1 train. And as each train came in, we would walk up and down the platform to see if there's anybody sleeping on the trains, and we'd give them whatever we had, food or clothing, donated to us. And that still goes on to this day. Our other goal was to open an emergency overnight shelter in the neighborhood. And we went through a lot of resistance. We had one space that agreed to allow us to do it in their space. That was the Riverdale Neighborhood House. But the community surrounding us opposed us vehemently, and we actually withdrew our proposal. We did get approval from the Kingsbridge Heights Community Center to operate in their space, but initially the executive director said, "You're all from Riverdale, and I'm not going to let you operate until you find a place in Riverdale, because I don't want to look like an organization that's being dumped on." And we spent a couple of years trying to find a place in Riverdale and got rejected by every space that we went to, every community space, every religious organization. And finally, the executive director of the Kingsbridge Heights Community Center said, "This is ridiculous. I want to help homeless individuals. So go ahead and use my space." And we operated there for maybe 10 years, something like that. And when their lease came up for renewal, it was discovered that the building was owned by Parks Department. But when Parks Department found out that we were using their space for an emergency overnight shelter, they said, "Nobody is allowed to be in a Parks Department facility after 1 a.m. And I tried to argue with the Parks Department, saying, "Our guests are in the building, the doors are locked, the gates are locked, nobody can get in. If they need to get out, there's a panic door, which an alarm will sound if they open. That's the only way they can get out. And if they do leave, they could risk getting thrown out of the program. So nobody wants to leave, but Parks Department said no. Had kept alive the proposal to do it here at the Society. And finally, I convinced the board of directors that we should do it here. And that was in 2003. We held a community meeting where we invited the neighbors, particularly the Fieldston property owners, to come and hear our proposal and, ask questions about it. And I remember at that meeting that one person complained, actually a neighbor who's got property that surrounds our property, and she complained that she saw homeless individuals in her backyard. And the community affairs officer from the 50th precinct at the meeting, and his response to her was, "How come I don't know about it?" Which made it obvious that she didn't report it. She's claiming she sees people, but she's not reporting it. And if she had reported it, they could have done something about it. There is a 311 number that if you see somebody that's homeless, you call 311 and they'll send somebody. They'll probably from Bronx Works. They'll contact Bronx Works, because Bronx Works has what's called the HOT team, Homeless Outreach Team. And they'll send a van out to a location that's reported that there's a homeless individual, and they'll try and convince the person to come inside and get shelter. It's just part of being a humanist, helping other people. It's a drop in the bucket based on the number of homeless people in New York City. When you think of those numbers, we offer 6 beds 1 night a week. It's nothing. The men that come here really appreciate it because I treat them like I'm inviting them into my own living room. And it's been operating smoothly. We've been operating for 11 years now. I'm coming up on 12 years, I guess. If you're homeless in New York City and you don't want to go to the city shelter system, which I understand is pretty horrendous, people who go there get belongings robbed and they get into fights with other people because of that, and the conditions are pretty horrible. So if you're homeless and you don't want to go to a city-run shelter, you can go to a drop-in center. There are 5 drop-in centers in New York City, 1 in each borough. And we work with the living room, which is run by Bronx Works. The living room has a capacity of 150 people. And during the winter time, it's filled to capacity. If they can't take somebody because they're filled, they give people a Metro card and send them to another drop-in center. And there are, since 2010, there are now 50 beds at the living room, and that section is called Safe Haven. And the 50 beds are reserved for what they consider chronically homeless individuals, which means those are people that they consider are so bad off that they're never going to get out of homelessness. So they're at least provided with a bed, but the rest of the population, the additional 100 people at the living room, are not allowed to lie down at night. They have no place to lie down. They sit in a hard plastic chair at a table. And many of them develop other problems, swelling of the ankles from sitting, sleeping in that position. And just last night I had a guy complain to me about that. And so it's pretty horrendous. And any opportunity they can get to come to a bed, they'll take. So, but when you consider a population of 150, that's a small universe of homeless individuals compared to the number of people in New York City. But, 6 of them get to come here, and they like coming here. They really want to come here. I have one guy who, he's been here 75 times. So, and he keeps coming. And I asked him, what are you doing? Is your caseworker or your social worker doing anything to get you housing? And he said, well, I have a job now. I'm working as a messenger. And I said, well, will that give you enough income to get affordable housing, get housing? And he said he hopes so. But who knows? It's a pretty dire situation. We do what we can, And I wish I could have more people here, but the size of the space and the limited storage space that we have, it just doesn't lend it. And I need a lot more volunteers to do more nights. I've heard of people freezing to death outside in the wintertime. There was a person a couple of years ago who was found dead along Marshalley Parkway in the middle of winter. And it was because he was homeless and out in the cold, exposed to the elements. There's a few good stories, like when we were doing the program on the subway. We gave an individual a jacket, like a sports coat or whatever, and he came back and told us that he actually got a job interview because he had a jacket to wear, something nice to wear for an interview. We had a person who's coming here on a regular basis who actually got a job with the Parks Department, and he told us about that. So yeah, there have been some success stories. Not a lot, but it's nice to hear when people, other people have gotten apartments and moved on. A lot of times we don't hear people who don't come back, but they don't come here anymore, so that's a good thing, We hope they're moving on. All of the meals are completely provided by the community. The best I can offer people who donate meals is a tax letter saying they've contributed, to a charitable organization. Nothing else is provided for other than the transportation for the individuals, the linen service, and the sundry items that I mentioned. They do give us a minimal stipend for the number of nights that we operate to go towards our utility bill. It's very minimal. So when you compare what they give us to what our utility bill is, it's like a tiny drop in the bucket. I think a lot of people have a lot of stigmas about who homeless individuals are, and one of the things it does is if more people from the community get to experience it, it dispels those stigmas. There's many different reasons for homelessness. It's not just because people are bad that they become homeless. People have domestic issues, they have mental health issues, they do have alcohol and drug problems sometimes. So there's a number of reasons that cause homelessness, and I think it shows the community, and we've had a number of reports in the local paper, the Riverdale Press, that show the community that this is not a bad thing.